Hello, this is Ki with RunScore. Today I'll be covering a little bit of the evolution of timing and scoring from the caveman days, where we started with popsicle sticks and such, to the new transponder systems, and talk about some basics that transponder systems give us more information and a lot easier time. The first thing that happened when we were scoring races, finish place was the predominant. So your cross-country races, all we did was give out a popsicle stick or a 3x5 card with the finish position number on it to the individuals. They crossed the line in order. Then the popsicle sticks were given to the coach, and they filled out a sheet to give you the names and information for each of those to be scored later. The 3x5 cards let the person put their information in on that card and the team name or whatever, and again the coach, or was given to a timer at the race. Then we found out that everybody was wearing a bib number. We could put a pull tab at the bottom that had either written in information or had a label on there for the person, and even after that is adding a barcode so we could speed the manual entry of those bib numbers into the event. Here the bib numbers are read in. You notice that they're in order, and we have the information from the lookup in the database. The next thing we did was we used to manually or automatically to put in the times. These started from just a stopwatch reading the times as they finished to having a clock there for additional information. Some people filled out tick sheets with the position or the times for each of those positions. And on the 3x5 cards, most of the athletes would put in their time on that could be used later. Then all of a sudden we found stopwatches that could also record each of these switch hits in as each timing position into memory, or even put out on a printer that allowed that to give us a format for the time to put into the computer to do our scoring. Later we found out that we could find the timing device like the old Sprint 8, Time Tech, Time Machine, Chronomics and such, that had a serial connection that we would put the serial port in the system so that RunScore knew what type of data was coming, the port for your serial port, the event, because most of them handled it with the push buttons for channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, which also equated to the event order in RunScore, the baud rate and the start. That all came in and allowed us to get all this information. Notice that in the early days, this was all done via elapsed time. We then found that it was easier to sync all of these timers or all the systems to time of day, so that we didn't have to have all of those timers at the starting line to be initialized. When we did this, we now got the time of day brought in for the times. Once we have brought those times in and the bib numbers in, we now have the time associated with a bib number, and with the keypads on the timers, we were able to get a select time to make sure that the columns both matched up. There's several times you might have a double hit on a time, or missing a bib number for that they wouldn't add up. So this allows us to manually massage this to get it down to what we needed. Now, we came up with a better system called a transponder. The transponder system allowed us to use an RFID chip or tag placed onto the athlete, and they were recorded over mats, antennas, or even nowadays side antennas that would allow us to bring in both the bib number and the time at once. So now the bib number or chip ID was read in. We don't have the chip IDs on this. What happens on a chip ID is the Tyrus chips, or the early chips that were used under a transponder system, had a coded ID in there that was read and sent to RunScore. You had a lookup with a bib chip file, either a CSV, or some of the old days used to use it in a separate DTA and FRM that RunScore used to look up and say, here on number 11, the code that was actually sent from the transponder system was this, and RunScore equated that to bib number 11, so we were going on that. The later systems moved to, instead of having a chip ID, they encoded the bib number into the chip or the tag, made life a lot easier. The next thing on that was the initial transponder systems worked the exact same way as the others, that the boxes or controllers would talk directly to RunScore via a serial port input. This caused some problems in the early years and had some other things that all of a sudden all the systems decided to use a middleware. When they use a middleware, that allowed us, instead of having one session in the external timers for each controller, to, under all the systems, the majority of the systems like ChronoTrack, MyLapse, and all the others, would actually act as a server under RunScore. And we went to TCP/IP connections, so we had a port event. Again, we didn't want to set the manual report because the system is going to pass that information to us. Start stop stays as start, and we check TCP. Notice there's no baud for that. Now that meant that under all those systems we could have one session running in RunScore and have an almost unlimited amount of clients for ChronoTrack, MyLapse, and some of the others being passed in. Two of the systems that I know of, JChip and iPico, went the opposite direction. Their system works as the server and RunScore works as a client, so you would have to have 4 lines here with a different port for each controller to bring in the data directly from those controllers. If you had 6, you would have to bring up a client session to be able to bring in those additional 2 controllers. Very simple on this TCP connection, and it works a lot better. The controllers pass the data. The readers and the controllers, the software on that can limit that, but the problem is when you have a hand controller or a hand timer, you're going to get one input for each switch hit or whatever. On a tag system, some of the earlier tag systems were getting up to 1,000 reads per individual. That was just messing up computer memory immensely. The timing systems out there ended up deciding to make life easier for them and us, and instead of just sending raw data, they started using what's called middleware. Middleware was used to connect directly to the boxes or controllers or the systems out there to handle the raw data from the readers, and used all the internal computing for the controller to pass data to their system and then connect to ours. So think of it as a post office box. The main post office sent the data down to your post office box, and then you went and got the data out of the post office box. Under ChronoTrack, the middleware right now is called Fusion, and this allows us to connect to the internet. It allows us to connect to local machines, and it allows us to connect to RunScore. The left side on this is all the boxes that you're dealing with for that race. We create a stream that says the box says it's finish. It didn't have to say that because we could change this to finish, and now that will send all the data from this controller into RunScore. We could also set up filters and adjustments to get everything we wanted. You could actually set up to subtract time from each of these to make it so that you had elapsed time, but everyone now uses time of date. This beautiful data coming from here directly into RunScore for each of these events. The select keypad is actually plugged into the controller for ChronoTrack and allows us to get all that information. I still like to have that. Now, on one of the important things to do on this, you'll notice we have not found runners added to database. The easiest way to do this is to set up in your operational things, not found added, yes. But we also want to edit the results. We want to have both. This is the same as doing F5, and that means that these columns are tied together so you can't accidentally put in a bib number or a time and mess up the correlation between those. Another good thing about this is you won't have a bandit anymore, because if it reads a tag, it's going to give you a time, and you either have a bib number or other information in here to where you will be able to find the correct person that matches that and add them back in, and they're golden. One of the important things on this, because of one of the functions, we can now record each starter at the start line via a set of antennas and the chips or tags that they're wearing to give them an actual start time. And this is handled by, when you have a start event, you're going to make this a start time function to where it records the last. They may be milling at the start line for several minutes before the start, so you only want to record that last time as they take off. The rest, the default, the split, or the finish time is the first time they come across that event. The other important thing about these is the transponder system gives you almost instantaneous information, very little additions or deletions in there, and the select time is not required. On the ChronoTrack, you can put a USB keypad into the controller and actually get select times that you pass to RunScore. Again, the middleware is very important for you. It gives you a lot more functions, and it can clean up your data before you ever see it. The old days, we had to do a lot of manual work before getting all of our results. Now, under a transponder system, it's almost instantaneous, and you can, under RunScore, you can do live results, or even the announcer function directly off these chip reads and have your information passed to the athlete quicker and cleaner. If you have any questions on this, Feel free to contact me at support. We'll talk some more in the future about some of these middleware, how they'd work directly with RunScore. Have a nice day.